All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Talk the Buffalo podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. Happy Casual Friday, everybody. I'm your host, Patrick Moran. You can find me on Twitter at Moran Tweets. Thank you very much for locking in, whether this is finding your ears on Spotify or Apple, or you're watching us on YouTube. My man, Joe Yerdon, Casual Friday is always favorite show of the week. I only do two of them, so I mean it's.
So you're saying I'm better than the other show? That's
better
nice.
than the other show, which sometimes is me solo. What's going on, buddy? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I don't know. It's been like a weird wind down from the birthday on Saturday, this past Saturday. So I've just been kind of in a fog, not like a drunken fog, hangover for days fog, just kind of like a everything was whatever. So yeah, but it's nice. It's nice to kind of just wind down from that and not have to think about getting older for a little bit. So it's nice. I'll take it.
I celebrated your birthday last Saturday by not drinking with you. That's how I celebrated your birthday. I was in South Buffalo. I told you about it. I think it was the next day, Sunday. I was contemplating because I think I seen a tweet at some point when you were out, but
yeah,
at that point I was not really in too good a condition to go anywhere else anyway.
I gotta ask you, where did you end up going?
South Buffalo, man. Molly's, this little dumpy dive bar. I don't want to diss the place because it's a lot of fun. It was an act. It's one of those typical, you know how South Buffalo bars for the most part are. They're neighborhood, little corner dives, but a lot of fun, very busy, a lot of socializing, dancing. It was a good time, man. It was a good time for sure. So
a bar with dancing? I don't know that I ever see dancing unless it's somebody who's thrown back too many and the music's
going to the wrong bars then,
bro. I guess not that I'm gonna dance. I'm never gonna dance. That is not my game, man. But man, that's weird. I don't. I mean, it's not like I'm going to clubs. You know, I'm not hitting the Sky Bar or anything like that. Like that ain't happening.
We're too old for that shit, man. Let our younger listeners and viewers do that.
Once I figured out that dive bars were more my speed, then I stayed at that speed. Yeah. I didn't need to, dive bars, sports bars, and just beer bars. That's about it.
I've been a dive bar guy for a long time now, and mostly cool. And I'm not a single guy looking for chicks, but even if you are, those are the cool places anyway to go meet people. I think I hate clubs. You don't catch me dead at a club anymore.
No, it's like the music's like the least offensive part of the club. It's wearing super nice clothes that are just not your style. I mean, not my style anyway. Maybe they could be my style. I don't know. Maybe I have to wear a button-down shirt that's unbuttoned to like the middle of my chest, and just have that gross hair sticking out.
Pat Moran and Joe Yerdon, two aging guys right now complaining about younger clubs to our probably mostly younger audience. You gotta love that. Yeah, I'll tell you this, decent segue anyway. I want to get right into things. We'll talk some Sabres. We'll talk Bills. This week's starting five draft. We're going to do best Will Ferrell movies. That'll be fun. But we're talking about younger people, younger crowds, clubs, stuff like that. 15 years ago, this is where I want to start, because this week, and I didn't know it until I saw it on Twitter, but once I saw it on Twitter, I watched the video over and over and over again. 15 years ago this week was the famous Buffalo Sabres, Ottawa Senators brawl, line brawl, whatever you want to call it. Everybody on the ice was fighting. And of course, going back to that day, that was 2007, right? Yeah, 2007.
Yeah.
For people who don't remember, Chris Neal hit Chris Drury with a really vicious elbow.
Bad.
And it was bad. He was bleeding on the ice. I remember the image very well. And again, I was reminded this week on the anniversary of it, watching the video. And sure enough, Lindy Ruff completely lost his shit. And then on the very next shift, he sent out Andrew Mayer and Andrew Peters and Patrick Coletta, and predictably hell ensued. The puck dropped and they just started going at it right away. And of course, that ultimately led to Ray Emery and Marty Baron fighting, which was it didn't go over. Kudos to Marty Baron, but Ray Emery
that
was
was
a
not
Ray,
Marty's fight to have.
Ray Emery was a fighter, and it did not go very well for him. But anyway,
Well, that's why Andrew Peters stepped in for him too. He's like,
he
no,
did.
I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll
No,
get to that.
no. Well, I'll tell you because I didn't see it at the time, but you know how MSG has those Beyond the Blue series,
Oh
which
yeah.
are very well done. Michelle Girardi, I mean, she's so good. But I never saw that one. And again, this week on the anniversary, I'm watching that video, and then like the next video up was that, and I watched it, and it was Duffers sitting down with Andrew Peters and Coletta and
Mhm.
Adam Mayer and Baran. And they talked about, everything going into what led up to that and just that rivalry and, the fight and all that stuff. And it's just, it really got me thinking because the fans were just losing their shit, going
On fire.
absolutely crazy. Yeah, the fans were on fire and it's just so different now. I won't talk about things being different now in a few minutes, but and like you weren't living in Buffalo yet because I
No.
think you moved here a handful of years later.
Mhm.
But I mean, obviously, very well following the Sabres back then. You're a hockey guy too, so
Mhm.
you know a ton about it. What do you remember from that? Again, 15 years, and by the way, 15 years have flown by because I don't feel like 15 years to me sometimes.
You said 15 years, and then I'm just like, oh, that's like 2002, right? It's like, no, it's 2007. And I'm like, oh my God,
Right?
no, it can't be. But yeah, it's that was that whole thing was just very weirdly organic, because Buffalo and Ottawa for those couple of years were really at each other's throats. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was a budding nasty rivalry, like up there with the Flyers. Like that's how that sort of set up because they met in the playoffs 2 years in a row in '06 and in '07. And Ottawa got the better of them in '07. But um, it was just so on point to see two teams that you meet in the playoffs. That lights a fuse for a few years.
Sure.
And that '06 series, I don't really remember it being a physically nasty series. I remember there being, pardon me, clear my throat there. Geez, I don't know what's going on here, but I remember that '06 series being like it was intense. Like that was a very intense series, and it was one where it made, I think it was the '06 series against Ottawa that made people really hate Brian Smolinski because he had the cockiest smile when he scored a goal. I forget what game it was when he scored a goal late that he thought sealed the game up for Ottawa, and Buffalo ended up coming back, and I think Buffalo ended up winning in overtime. Maybe I don't. This is where me not being here, my
Sure. Yeah.
memories get a little bit fuzzy, uh, but like when the fuse gets lit in the playoffs like that, that stuff holds over, in a regular season and anything. And that was seeing that erupt was just kind of like, whoa, all right, okay, regular season, throwdown like that. You don't see stuff like that normally happen. I mean, every once in a while, you'll see a couple of teams just, both get out of the gray days of February and just decide, screw it, we're fighting. But like that was born out of meeting each other in the playoffs and having that history. And when you run a guy who's basically the captain, I mean, it's Chris Drury. He's one of the, him and Briere were the best players on the team. And Chris Neal was not exactly the best player on the Ottawa team. He's very good at a couple of things: throwing body checks and throwing dirty hits. What Chris Neal was good at, and that was one that he threw at Drury, and you
It
just
was
don't like.
filthy. It was filthy.
That was a
There's no defending
brutal
it.
hit. Brutal hit. No, yeah, zero defending it. And yeah, like that was the proper response. Now, the funny thing is, if Lindy Ruff does that now and sends out a line like that right after an incident, he's probably getting fined. He might even get a suspension from the league for doing that because it's like, oh, you can't be taking the law in your own hands. It's like, I guess, like I suppose so. But like that was, you know, it those moments really, that's like in that like the bridging era for me where growing up with with the '80s hockey where it was high scoring, high hitting, very punchy, like lots of fights. Every team had a guy that was just like, okay, they're you know this team's coming to town, our heavyweight and their heavyweights, they're going to meet at some point.
Sure.
And, that 07, 06, 07, like that era was over. But there were still some holdover guys. There were still some guys that had come up through that era, or they had grown up at that time, or maybe they were rookies, towards the end of that. And that was
Coletta's first game. That was his debut.
Wow.
I believe that's what I saw on, which I did not know,
wow.
or I didn't remember until I watched it.
What a baptism.
It felt to, Joe, I would say I would use a comparison for this, and I don't want to use anyone on the Sabres because, quite frankly, I don't think most fans care about the Buffalo Sabres all too much right now, but they very much care about the Buffalo Bills. Back in those days, like it was, it was 15 years ago. 15 years ago, dude, it was like how they feel about the Buffalo Bills right now, man. It's like how they feel about the team right now, the Bills, not the Sabres. And I would say this would be the equivalent, like the New England Patriots are a rival. It would be the equivalent of Matthew Judon rushing Josh Allen and taking a dirty cheap shot and trying to take his knee out. You know what I mean? The reaction from fans would be the same right now if somebody tried doing that to Josh Allen. So again, I mean, some things are borderline dirty. And if you're if it's a Sabre who's doing the dirt, you could try to defend it, but there's not really, in this case, there wasn't any defending it at all, man. It was just, it was really dirty, man.
Yeah.
And it set off the shitstorm. And it's kind of like when a fight's coming because you knew a fight was coming. I mean, sure, shit.
Lindy was about ready to jump on the ice himself and throw some punches.
He went
nuts.
He did go nuts. For people who are watching this on YouTube, well, he's already he tried climbing up and then he kind of fell down, which he's lucky he didn't hurt himself, but he just continued screaming at Brian Murray. And it went on. But if you're Marty Baron, man, and you got to score up with Ray Emery, man, no, it's not going to go well. But hey, props to Baron, though. I mean, he did what he had to do.
Yeah, I mean, he had
been worse.
He had a bit of a smile on his face, probably because he was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And even that picture, the picture we've got on the YouTube video for this, like even Ray Emery's smiling. Ray's probably smiling for a different reason. Ray's probably like, I'm going to beat your ass into the ground. This is not even going to be close. And if nobody remembers Ray Emery, the late Ray Emery, I should say, horrible death a couple of years back. But he, the way he got in trouble when he was with the Flyers, because he had a goalie mask design and he wanted to put Mike Tyson on the side because he loved boxers. He loved Joe Frazier, Ali, Tyson, all those guys. And he wanted to put Tyson on his goalie mask, and the league had to be like, dude, the guy just went to jail not that long ago for rape. You can't be putting him on your mask. We're not cool with that. And like, he played for Philly and it's like, okay, we'll throw Joe Frazier on the mask. Like, that's perfect. Philly, Joe Frazier's from Philly. You can't win more, local votes than by doing that. But Ray would fight. And if a goalie ever left their crease during a scrap or something like that, Ray would just be like, all right, let's go. It's go time, baby. Let's do this. And,
I think he could have killed Marty.
He would have.
He was smiling. Marty. I don't think he wanted to beat him, but he didn't want to. We could have put him in the hospital. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and he didn't.
That's the thing. Like, the goalies have all the padding, but when you take the helmets off, you're not protecting your head anymore.
with Andrew Peters, I saw him that Beyond the Blue and Gold special, which again, that aired a couple years ago, and I just watched it. But Andrew Peters, I'm pretty sure he said that he didn't even realize, because he was in his own scruff and stuff. I don't even think he knew that Baron was fighting him until the very end. And that's when he made a beeline towards him. And next thing you know, you got, which I know it's happened before, but I personally can't remember a guy just making a beeline for a goalie and fighting with him like that. And it wasn't that one-sided either. I mean, Peters got some good shots in, and Emery, again, I got this for people watching on YouTube. I got a photo of, he's got a smile on his face as Andrew's trying to tee off on him, man. Yeah. But it was just wild seeing a skater, your goon, Andrew Peters, fighting with a goalie, which again, considering what happened to Drury, which is your Josh Allen at that time, it was justified, man. It is just so wild. But through all these fights, Joe, I mean, it's fun to reminisce about what happened. But what I remember most fondly now looking back is just the fans. Again, everyone's on the edge of their seats. And yeah, because of that fight, sure. But I'm just saying it just reminded me, because sometimes we forget because it's been so long now. It just reminded me how electric the arena used to be. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. That arena was electric almost on a nightly basis back 15 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say the electric atmosphere at the arena, it's popped up a few times over the past few years. That 10-game win streak,
Sure.
a couple of years back, every home game, especially the 7-1 win over the Flyers that they had. I think that was like win 8 or 9 in that run, where they mopped the floor with Philly, and every goal, the place was just going bonkers, and the place is packed out. I know it seems weird compared to now because the place is never packed out, but the fans were going wild. They're doing the 1, 2, 3, we want more, they're doing that stuff, like that. I hear that stuff, and it's like a throw over to my college hockey times where the student sections always do that stuff after the team scores, counting it off, taunting the goalie, like that stuff's fun. But like this, missing out on those times now, it's rough. Like, especially because like regular season games can be really tough to, get that kind of feeling into them. And that's all the Sabres have had to go on the last 11 years is just regular season game. You need to have, try to drum up some kind of hype and, mania for regular season games, really tough. And, the fact that happened then, I mean, helped that, the Sabres were suddenly one of the best teams in the NHL, and, Ottawa was as well. And, that's a big tilt. It sounds crazy to hear Buffalo and Ottawa. That's a big, what do you mean? Like, that's crazy. And no, it really was.
Sure.
I think like the last few years when Zdeno Chara was with Boston, and, Boston would come through, and you'd think that, when it was him and Lucic on the team, you'd think that, fans would be booing every time Lucic touched the puck because of what he did to Miller. But no, it was Chara. Chara was the guy that got the brunt of the boos and it was because of all that stuff in 06 and 07. Like that's what really stuck with everybody was how, how much of a menace Chara was to deal with. I mean, he's one of the best defensemen that we've seen in the last, 15 years, but those memories don't fade. Like that's the thing. Like those memories don't fade. And the way people, wrap their arms around this moment, you understand why, and you think of the things that have happened since then, especially the Lucic Miller thing, which, that moment to me is what sent this franchise spiraling, because they tried to get answers for that moment each of like the next 2 or 3 off seasons. They go and sign John Scott, they, doing all these things to try to toughen the team up because they didn't, nobody stood up for Miller. And, they were trying to recoup that because of, if that happens in 06-07, I mean, Lindy Ruff is coming down choking somebody. Like that's, I'm surprised they didn't do it then, honestly. But like that, not having that kind of response, it's, it can make people mad. And like Buffalo fans, especially, they feed on that stuff. They feed on defending each other and sticking up for each other and, playing physical hockey. Like that's something that, Buffalo, Boston, Philly, like those cities like that, like if their teams are playing physical and playing well, fans eat it up. Like everybody loves that stuff. It sounds weird to say that about certain cities and teams, but that's totally the case. Like if you have, if the Bruins were like a highly skilled but not physical team, like people would enjoy it, but it wouldn't have the same oomph. Same for Philly. Philly's always had like a couple of guys that were really rough around the edges, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, like steer clear because they got X, Y, and Z guy. Like, Buffalo was, they had a whole line, essentially like a whole lineage of guys that were just like, whoa, we got to back up here. It starts with Rob Ray, and it goes, you got Brad May, you get, Barnaby, then it comes into, the new era. You got Peters, you've got Coletta and those guys. And it's like, you weren't running afoul with those guys buzzing about. Like that was just not something that was going to happen.
The boogeyman, Bob Bugner was.
Oh man.
It's another guy too.
God, Bugner was so good. Yeah. I mean, he was so good at like laying the body and just playing physical and just being like nobody's going side. Nobody's going to do anything wrong while I'm out here.
You know what was the as good as that fight was, and if you're a fan and you're like in your, and there's the weekly Joe Yerdon fire alarm outside of his house.
I don't like that because now my microphone turns all the way up because it wants to get the sound of the sirens fully. So then I talk and it's like, boom, boom.
Anyway, for Sabre fans who, if you're in your 20s, like mid 20s, late 20s, you remember fairly well 50, if you've been watching the team for that long, 15 years ago with the Sabres Senators. But I'll tell you, that wasn't the coolest line fight for me, or just the goalies too. For me, it was 1996. And I went back after I was done watching up on all the Ottawa stuff. Like I said, I started getting sentimental and remembering a lot of this stuff. I went back to 1996 when the Sabres played the Flyers at the arena. And holy shit, man, as crazy as Buffalo, Ottawa was, Philly and the Sabres probably hated each other even more. Matt Barnaby was he was doing Matt Barnaby things in front of the net. Somebody laid his ass out and he was down and he was acting like he was dead. And, guys around him, Nick Bradmay was out there and Bugner was out there. And they're all kind of, and they're in scrums, but they're not like dropping the gloves and completely fighting yet. And then at one point, a ref's checking on Barnaby when he's down, and Garth Snow takes his goalie stick and he pokes Barnaby. And then all of a sudden, Barnaby just drops his gloves, it goes flying, and he fumbles his shit out of Garth Snow. And he's down. Oh, who's the goalie? Truffleoff, I think, was the goalie. I think that's the goalie.
Was it him or was it Steve Shields?
No, it wasn't Shields.
Okay.
It was
I was to say Shields was.
He came down he gave a couple uppercuts to Snow, and then they eventually squared off, and Snow got the better of him. And then Rob Brindamore and Barnaby went at it for what felt like 15 minutes. But you could see that, Rick Jenneret's going crazy, and you could see on just the fans. It was just an electric moment. But yeah, man, it was just funny because Barnaby just looked like he was dead, and then all of a sudden he was playing possum, basically. You know what I mean? And the second guy still poked him a little bit with his stick. He just jumped up. I tweeted at Matt Barnaby earlier this week, and he goes, "I wish I would have had, or wish I could find a good picture of me punching him, because I apparently Matt Barnaby's writing a book or something. I don't fucking know." But anyway, he did tweet that, and that fight was crazy. And it's just, dude, it's like, again, that era, and then they weren't always even great teams, but the fans just were alive. And again, going back to the 2006, 2007, that era, the fans. I know you remember in the playoffs, the party in the plazas and things like that. It was
the videos of those were wild.
Yeah, it was wild. It was so cool, man.
They would have the playoff games on like cable or on ESPN or whatever, and every time there was a Buffalo goal or a goal against, they would cut right to the party, the plaza party to get the reaction, and it was like, whoa. Like, these people are outside watching the game, like or just like listening to the game on the radio and reacting. It's not.
So cool.
Pretty sure you could hear, if somebody scored, you would hear the crowd from outside.
You're on the west side, right? You're on the west side right now. You might have flirted with hearing Sabres go all the way from downtown. Well, you wouldn't be here, not today, because again, I feel like party in the plaza, crowds and that kind of enthusiasm. We're a long way from that right now.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about it on this show plenty. There is some hope for optimism with these good young players, but look, man, you got to win some more games. I get it. Again, neither of us expect them to be a contender right now, or a playoff team, or even a legitimate, serious playoff contender. But, injuries, COVID, goaltending, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Bottom line, bro, 52 games they played this year. They got 16 times they've walked off with the W. 16 times in 52 games. They've lost 4 in a row. They've lost, 7 of their last 9. Wednesday night in Montreal, one of the more, Montreal's played better of late. I think that was like their 4th.
They're a much different team now with Marty St. Louis coaching. I can't believe Marty St. Louis is a coach now. Oh my God. This is the stuff that ages me even more.
Your birthday, Marty St. Louis, a coach. God. Yeah, you're getting old, bro.
I watched Marty play in friggin' college, man. Like,
Wednesday night was a pretty embarrassing. I thought it was anyway. It was a pretty embarrassing effort. Let me ask you one question, Joe. I want to ask you one question because I'm confused by this. I know that Granato's trying to find lines at work. I understand that. And Kyle Poso right now is out with non-COVID illness. And I see these line combinations, and we go through them in our head a lot. And We still are waiting. Quinn will be back at some point. Paterka and Gergeson's isn't back. And again, Okposo, but that second line, which he ran at practice and then played, 3 center Krebs, Middlestat, and Cousins. Those are, I mean, we're talking over the last couple of weeks, whether it's you and I on this podcast or I'm just talking to other Sabre fans. I'm like, oh, we got Thompson, we got Krebs, we got 4 good centers. We put 3 of them on the same line. Now I know these guys move around a little bit and stuff like that, but it just, I don't know, felt weird. Does it feel like to you, since Middlestat came back, it's like they kind of don't know what to do to make it fit? By the way, Olafson too, I should have mentioned him. But anyway, I mean, is it Middlestat coming back and they just don't know how to make these lines work? What do you think is going on? Why do you got 3 centers on the same line is what I'm asking you.
I don't like doing that kind of stuff, same position, all one line. Like that's a video game move for me where you're just kind of like, I don't have enough guys at this position. Oh, screw it. Just put them all here. But they've moved those centers around and had some of them play wing from time to time. All 3 of those guys, Middlestat's play time in the wing, Krebs has, Cousins has, like they all have. This is the time of the year where Don should be doing weird stuff, just to see what works. Try it out, see if it works. If it sticks,
fair.
Cool. If it doesn't, blow it up. Last night, that line lasted not even a whole period. Like,
right.
Because it helped that they got down early, but like he pulled that line apart, pretty early on in the game. Because I think it's totally a let's see if we spark something here. I've heard, I've listened to some stuff lately. I heard Rob Ray on with Bulldog this week, talking about, they got talking about that, 2007 Ottawa thing where he's in the between the benches listening to Lindy and Brian Murray screaming at each other, and
that was funny. That was an underrated moment during all that. Yeah,
the picture you showed with Razor standing right there, just like
kind of covering his microphone a little bit too, or his thing on his.
Well, the thing is, Ray said that he had RJ in his ear telling him to cover up the microphone because they didn't want any swears getting out of the air. Right. I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense, but also like they're gonna hear it anyways, man. There's not enough. Razor's got big hands. He's not gonna muffle out all that sound. But yeah, it's this time of year for the Sabres, just try stuff out. There's no need to really get stuck on things. Don had said, I think it was about a week ago, saying that, hey, like none of these lines are written in stone. Even the Tuck Thompson Skinner line, he was just kind of like, he's like, we could jumble some things around there just to kind of see what's happening, what works and whatnot. And listen, this is the season to do it. If you're down the road, next season or the season after, and they become a really good team, you don't want to tinker with stuff like that and find out, things that, later on where, you're trying to win games down the stretch and you can't really play all loose and free like that and just be like, screw it, 3 centers on a line, let's see if it works. Like you can't do stuff like that. All these young forwards, they've, whether they were centers or wingers, they've gotten time at both positions. Like that's just the way they've done it. They did it with Quinn for a little bit in Rochester last year. Cousins has gotten time on the wing, not regularly, but like enough. Krebs has played on the wing occasionally here, just because they're trying to ease up on the defensive responsibility of playing center, because there's a weakness right now in Krebs' game. It's probably his defensive work, but again, he's the kid, like that's, you're going to have these growing pains and these kinds of things happening. So I listen, I didn't like seeing it. Honestly, I didn't like seeing it, but I get it. I totally get it. Like try stuff out, see if it works. I mean, listen, trying stuff out and see if it works is how you get Thompson, becoming your number 1 center and playing great. Like that's the way that works. Sometimes stuff is going to play out great and it's going to work. Sometimes it just isn't.
All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon, and we're going to switch gears here. I want to talk a little bit of Buffalo Bills, and more specifically, so Joe, on Tuesday, and I'm sure you probably didn't get a chance to watch the show because nobody who ever is on the show watches the show unless they're on the show. That's what Joe from Queens. Oh, I'm sorry. Buffalo wins told me. But anyway,
I
seriously,
never watch my own episodes. I can't stand listening to
yeah, you
myself
know what?
or
I'm not a
seeing
big fan of
myself.
it either.
Really,
I'm not a
I've got
big fan of it
problems with
either.
that.
I've been doing it lately because we've been doing some video stuff and I'm trying to see what works, what doesn't work, lighting stuff like that. But yeah, most part, I don't even watch my own episodes back or listen to them. I'm just going to be honest with you. But anyway, all right. So I did an episode where I had fans send in tweets and I asked people to send me your biggest bold offseason Bills predictions, Buffalo Bills predictions, and got a lot of them. You know, a lot of them were trading for big time defensive ends or, you know, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, fun to talk about. Might not happen, but at least it's fun to talk about. Anthony Marino from Buffalo Rumblings, good buddy of mine,
Mhm.
tweeted, and I want to talk about this one specifically because I think, and it's not bold, and which is kind of I think the point. I think this is the thing that's most likely to happen. I'm going to throw it up here on the screen. I'll read it. Anthony Marino tweeted this. I want to get your reaction. My bold prediction is that the Bills do nothing bold. Sign a bunch of vets looking to get a ring to minimum type contracts to fill the holes on the roster. And I'm like, well, that's kind of boring, you know.
Mhm.
But the more I think about it, I think that that realistically could happen, man. I mean, I think based on what we've seen from Brandon Bean, at least last year. I mean, a couple years ago, Brandon Bean was a lot more aggressive in pursuing talent in free
Mhm.
agency. I'm talking about like in 2019 when they went after like John Brown and Cole Beasley and players like they did a lot in free agency. And then 2020 is when they traded for Stephon Diggs. But
Mhm.
last year was more about let's take care of our own. Like they extended Deion Dawkins, they re-signed Matt Milano, they re-signed Darrell Williams. You know, they're core players. They invested in their core players, and they filled a couple holes through free agency. Like they brought in Emmanuel Sanders, and because they, you know, John Brown was gone, so they had to get a receiver, 1 year guy. They got to sign a lot of guys to 1 and 2 year deals. You know, Effie
Mhm.
Obata is somebody that they brought in from Carolina to play defensive end, and that didn't really work out too well. But my point was is they weren't splashy in free agency. You
Mhm.
know, they was about re-signing their own, extending a couple of their guys, and just drafting. And then they went into the draft, and we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, they drafted 2 defensive ends. One of them for sure looks like a good starter. They got Spencer Brown in the third round, came back, so they took 2 tackles, 2 defensive ends. That was their strategy. You know, continue to build on the draft. You look at this offseason right now, and plus, we need to say this as well. The Bills, well, any team could get creative. They can push money back. They can restructure. You can always create money. And this is the NFL,
Mhm.
man. They just kick the can down the road is like the motto for
Salary
most teams.
cap is a figment of everybody's
Yeah, it's a
imagination.
myth, and a lot of people say that, and to some extent, I think it is true. But when it comes to the Bills this offseason, what do you think the play is going to be? Not necessarily what you think it should be, because I know we
Mhm.
both have opinions on that. But how do you think Brandon Bean is going to play this offseason? Because you're looking at a team that's on the cusp. They are literally right now the Vegas favorite to win the Super Bowl next year, which
Mhm.
means absolutely freaking zero to me. But I mean, the point is that they're considered a front runner next year. Do you think this is a year where Brandon Bean should go out and try to get a Stephon Diggs via trade, you know, at a different position?
Mhm.
Or do you say, let's just continue to take care of their own, build for the long term, and just continue? You want draft picks, you don't want to give them up. What do you think Brandon Bean's thinking right now?
I'm thinking because they don't really have to do a lot of tinkering. Let's be honest. This team's set up very well.
Right.
But there are a couple of positions where you could say, well, we could use some help. I think the line, both lines are one of it. If edge rusher, they talked about that. Um, receiver, depends on what they do with Beasley and whatever. And I think they seem set with Diggs and Gabe Davis. So like, you don't really have to mess with a lot of that stuff. Running back, I don't know. Singletary seemed to play really well at the end of the season once they decided like, oh hey, we can run the ball too. Yeah, that's good. But if you have a position that if there's a position they feel that they have, maybe not a huge weakness at, but like that's a little bit softer than the others. If there's an opportunity to go get maybe not necessarily like a home run, but like somebody who's like an upper level, upper tier guy, strike for it. Go for it. If somebody's gonna trade you an edge rusher, or if there's somebody out there that is unhappy in their situation, make a run at it. Take a shot, take a swing, because listen, Bean kind of dropped the ball trade deadline this past season. He didn't upgrade, didn't get any help.
He didn't do anything. Yeah.
Right. It's not even upgrading position. He didn't do anything. And there were obvious holes that could have been if not filled, then, just added depth to it to make it better. The O-line obviously was one. But it's, he doesn't have to do a ton, everything's right there and in place. Like what's their big offseason shopping list looking like? What, another punter? Oh, okay. The team that never wants to punt is going to go get another punter because you need somebody who can actually do it when they're called upon, like that's like a basic thing, but shouldn't be too hard to find a punter.
I think they're going to look for more than a punter. I would say for me, and I think a lot of people are overthinking things right now, and sometimes it just stares you in the face. Last year it was defensive end, and they went draft heavy with them. Plus, again, they signed Obata. I think cornerback is going to be a position this year that they're going to target, whether it is first of all, you got Trey White. So, and he had it's like a 9 to 12 month injury. So that puts him back at the earliest August. So, you're flirting with, a month away from the season starting, assuming everything goes well. And that's on the short end of his recovery. So you got a guy coming off major ACL. Levi Wallace is a free agent. And this is what I'm kind of talking about, where Brandon Beane might say, we're assuming, if we would have taped this, we haven't been doing this show from you and I for quite a year, but I'm pretty confident if we were doing this time last year and we discussed Matt Milano, we would have been saying goodbye, Matt Milano, because people were saying he's going to get, $16 million, his 5-year deal somewhere else, and he's going to go get himself paid. And what happened? He didn't even hit free agency. He signed a 4-year, I think $44 million deal, something like that. He's getting like 11, 12 million a year. But my point being, he's got a little bit less than what we thought based on what we read and heard and saw. He wanted to be here and he stayed. Levi Wallace, right now the projections are him getting 8-9 million a year. That happened. See you later. Good. I like Levi Wallace, but the Bills aren't going to pay him, nor should they pay him. Yeah. They already spent too much money in their secondary between Trey and Poyer and Hyde and Teron Johnson. But my point is this: they might have a pretty good focus on trying to get Levi Wallace back, taking care of their own. Anyway, moving on. So if they lose him, now you got an injured Trey White coming back and Dane Jackson. That's it. They're going to sign a veteran in free agency, especially if they lose Levi Wallace. That might be one of those bigger splashy signings. Now, I don't know specifically who it might be. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep that first round pick, Joe. I'd be willing to bet right now. My money, I know people say edge and line and receiver. My money right now, if this draft was tomorrow, the Bills are drafting a cornerback in the first round. They might draft a cornerback in the second round too. Just like they went back-to-back positions twice last year in the draft. So
I hadn't thought about that position at all because I just automatically think, well, you got Trey White, you're good. Not that I forgot about the injury. I know, that's there.
Right, right.
ACLs are rough, and recovering from that is tough, especially when you run. You got to be fast like that. Like it's asking a lot, but it's not like I wouldn't be sweating him. Getting in proper, getting proper rehab and getting in proper shape for that.
Right.
But yeah, the possibly losing another corner, possibly losing Levi Wallace on free agency that's tricky because, I remember when they gave Teron Johnson that extension, everybody's like, oh, they got the best nickel back in the league. And I'm like, well, it's cool. Like, and they gave him a bunch of money for it too. Like, that's great. Like, everybody plays nickel now. So like, that's, that's fine. But in my old school mind, I'm just kind of like, yeah, but can he play normal corner too? Because he might need to do that. Is he good at playing straight up, regular coverage
on the outside?
As a corner?
Not his thing. But
right. So like, you give a bunch of money like that. I'm always kind of like, that seems like a luxury spend. Like giving Saran Neal a nice, very nice deal for Saran. Good for him. But like he's mostly on your special teams, like and I get great special teams players is a very touchy subject in Buffalo. I understand, but
it still is. Still is right now. Today, as we tape this, it still is. Saran Neal. There was something on Twitter, Joe. I just kind of want to piggyback what you're talking about. This being a touchy subject. I can't remember. He was interviewed by somebody, And he said that he don't expect anybody to talk about the squib kick, what happened, the communication. He said, don't bother it. He basically insinuated, don't bother asking because nobody on this team is going to talk and tell what happened.
Okay. I mean, good luck
Just
with that.
saying.
Good luck with that. I mean, people are going to ask about it.
They're going to keep asking, as they
Right.
should. But
right.
anyway.
I mean, you're not doing your job as a reporter if you don't ask about,
right.
Hey, what happened in that really dumb moment in the really big game? Like, can you tell me what went down there? But I mean, Saran Neal, he's a depth secondary guy. But I mean, I think towards the end of the year, anytime that he had to step in the secondary, he was taking a bad penalty. It's like, okay, man, like back, worry about kicks and punts and getting downfield first and all that. But like, spending money like that. And listen, I like I said, figment of your imagination is what the cap is. Like it's all fake. It's all fake. Don't even believe that it's there. When the Cowboys and Niners, when they first put the cap in place, started being like, yeah, but who cares? Just spend money, get in the playoffs, and take a swing for the Super Bowl. Like that's the spot the Bills are in right now. You don't need to be frugal about things. You don't need to do any, just be like pinch pennies around, here and there. Just no, like that. They're not in the position to do that stuff. So
they're not going to be the Rams. I don't see. It's not Brandon Beane's. It's just not his thing. I can't see them going crazy in free agency. I can't see him giving up multiple first round picks for a guy. It would be nice. It would be nice to get an elite pass rusher via trade. It would be nice to sign someone like that. It would be nice to make that big move. And you just did justify why, but I just don't think they're going to do it. I think Saran Neal resigning, who they gave him the biggest contract for a special teams player in the NFL just this past week. And he is an elite special teams player who could do some things at corner. You don't want him out there starting, if he's got to play a series
like
or two.
Safety.
Yeah, it's what he is. Exactly what he is. He's that backup nickel. But I'm becoming more and more convinced that I think they're going to have an offseason similar to the last one. Re-signing Harrison Phillips, I think is going to be it's going to be a priority. It's going to be re-signing Wallace, maybe re-signing Isaiah McKenzie. That's another one.
Yeah.
And
does he even stay? Like that's the thing. Does Isaiah McKenzie even stay? I think that to me is a really interesting conversation to have.
Have to pay him.
Well, A, you have to pay him. B, you have to find a place to put him in the lineup, because I think everybody's expecting that Beasley's got to get bought out, but maybe brought back in at a lower, at less money.
If
they do that, where are you putting McKenzie then? Like, are you going to go 4 wide all the time? Like, you can't. I mean, you can, but like,
I'm in the minority, Joe. I think Cole Beasley's done in Buffalo. Yeah, I don't think he wants to be. I don't think he wants to be. It's not the football team. It's not the football players. It's not the teammates. I just, without getting into another conversation, I just don't think he wants to be in the state of New York anymore.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be out. And
so we'll see him with the Dolphins then soon, or the Texans, or go back to Dallas.
Maybe go back to Dallas. Maybe play for Houston. I don't know. I could see him play for Florida or Texas team. If that's
Tampa, Jacksonville. Well, not Jacksonville, but
I think I think they would like to get McKenzie back. Though, if you're going to re-sign your own, I mean, and then you got extensions, guys who are going to be coming up soon. You got Dawson Knox is going into the last year of his contract. Jordan Poyer, ditto. Tremaine Edmonds, his 5th year, which is a whole other conversation
that's a
right.
Big
but my point is, they might decide, hey, let's lock them up. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm just saying it's possible they could.
I think
Mitch Morse is going in. Maybe they want to redo a deal for Mitch Morse, who was really good this year. He's going in the final year of his deal. Maybe they want to bring Jerry Hughes back for one more year at $3 or $4 million because he still has value.
He still brought a lot of pressure last year. That's the thing. Like he didn't get to he wasn't getting sacks, but he got a ton of pressures.
He was way better than what his stats indicated, for sure. Absolutely. I'm getting just
it's a busy day in the neighborhood.
It's a busy fire day on the west side today. Anyway, I'm more amped to thinking that that's how the Bills are going to approach this offseason. I think they might plug a couple holes in free agency, very similar to last year. I don't see them giving up draft picks for veterans in trade. I don't see it, man. I'm not saying I don't want them to do it. I'm not saying if they could find the defensive end or the cornerback version of Stephon Diggs and they got to give up their first and their third, fucking do it, man. I will be on my feet clapping and cheering for it to happen. I just don't think it's going to.
The Bills are in a spot right now where they would be justified in doing that.
Absolutely.
Right now.
Absolutely.
But they're also in a spot where if the opportunity is there to do that this year and they don't do it, they come up short again, then you're saying, okay, we'll do it this next year. And then at that point have things slid maybe a little bit too far, like I think that's not like a doomsday thought. I think that's a proper way to look at it, because every year weird shit can happen,
and your quarterback's going to get $40 million in 2023. And this year his cap, it's like 18 or something.
That's
very
what I mean.
manageable.
That's where I think, like, if you pulled not even a full Rams, I just mean like a half Rams, don't give up everything that you can to fill out every position. But like, that's what I was saying, like if there's a position where there's somebody that you can get that is going to make you immediately better at that spot and become an immediate game changer, do the trade.
Yeah.
Do it. Just do it and don't look back.
And don't go full Rams. That was funny. All right. Yeah, the Rams might be we're talking about just the philosophy of the Rams. The Bills are not in the same position in the Rams because the Rams needed a quarterback. So they gave up the farm to get one. Hey, dude, you got a Super Bowl ring. It already paid off. I don't give a shit if you could go.
It's already, you already won.
You could suck for the next 5 years. You got your Super Bowl ring. 9 out of 10 Bills fans would sign up for one Super Bowl and then 5 or 6 years of sucking immediately after. I sure as hell know that I would. But
besides, what are the Lions going to do with the draft picks? They got to make the Rams look bad for doing it? No, of course not.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The 32nd pick is going to be a difference maker for the Lions. That's going to put them in the Super Bowl. No, but Lions have 1,000 problems.
If you want to go full Rams, and again, the Bills don't have a need at any position like the Rams did at quarterback. But if you want to go Rams, if there's ever a year to do it, it's going to be this year. Because again, I don't know that you're going to be more favored. Yeah, you got. I mean, they're not in good cap shape. But again, Joe, that's a bunch of bullshit. They could do what they got to do. If they want a player, they can go get them.
Yeah, restructure other deals. Do whatever.
If there's ever a case to go get a shutdown corner to play with Trey White, or if there's ever a case to go get a guy who could get you 15 sacks, Donnell Hunter is a great defensive end from Minnesota. He immediately comes to mind. You could trade for a guy like that. Or you want to say, hey, you know what? Let's just make this offense ridiculous. Let's go get a wide receiver that's just unstoppable to play with.
Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. Calvin, that's a perfect name. You go get a Calvin Ridley and you have Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis or Calvin fucking Ridley. Are you kidding me? And Dawson Knox.
Good luck. Good luck, everybody else.
You're not going to give up a first round pick and worry about the future in the future.
Yeah.
Got to do it, man.
It's
going to be fun.
I love that you picked out of Minnesota, a guy playing for the Vikings. I'm sure the Vikings are very eager to do another trade with the Bills. That's going to make them look like they got pants like that. Well, I'm sure the Vikings really want to do that.
Well, no, I'll tell you what though, the Vikings I think that was a win-win trade. Justin Jefferson's a beast, man. So
he's good.
He's not quite Stephon Diggs, but he's
that's the point.
It's a trade that worked out for both teams. It worked out for there. All right. But anyway,
listen, you give me the chance to dunk on the Vikings, I'm going to friggin' do it.
Yeah, you're a Lions fan, so I should expect nothing less. When
They're
you get
an
a rare
dumb team in that division, okay?
You get a rare chance to dunk on another team. You especially got to take advantage of it. I'll tell you what, by this time next week, we might start to have a little bit, well, maybe not next week, but certainly 2 weeks from now, we'll start to have a little bit of direction on what the Bills might do, because now next week we're getting into March.
Free agency.
It starts March 16th. So that's only two and a half weeks away is free agency. And I think the Bills going in before free agency, we're going to see some cuts for sure, some restructuring for sure. And you could trade before free agency. So I think this will start to take shape in the next couple of weeks. Maybe next week we'll spend a little bit of time talking about, it's easy to say, hey, let's go get a corner. Hey, let's go get a tight end. Hey, let's go get a left guard. Maybe we'll start to spend a little more time talking about a couple actually specific possibilities. So
yeah, I think this will also be a good time to fire up the whole get Gronk for one more year to play at home.
I think I've already used that up with people. They're pissed off.
How many people have you made mad by saying
a lot? Well, guess what, Joe? It's the end of February. Guess who has not retired yet?
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, I do not think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna resign with Tampa, and I would be willing to bet if FanDuel put out odds for Gronk's next team right now, I bet you the Bills are at the top of it. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't they be? Like they're a top 5 team. They're a Super Bowl favorite. It's home for him. Like,
Well,
it
because
seems like too easy of a move to make.
because he gave Trey White a cheap shot 4 years ago. That's why I guess.
Listen, he's damned forever now,
and fans don't want to forgive him. I promise you, Trey White would. I don't want to get into this again.
Okay, here's another name for you. Like, what if they got Jarvis Landry? Jarvis Landry was a douchebag to the Bills 100 times over. Like, what if that was the guy that falls in your lap to be that receiver?
I'd rather have Gronk for 2 reasons.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, Gronk retires, and then you're just kind of like, all right, well, let's go get a guy. Like, are Bills fans going to still be pissed about like Jarvis? Well, yeah, Jarvis Landry did it multiple times, not just once.
Jarvis Landry essentially more or less ended Aaron Williams' career. So
that's right.
I don't ever see that. I don't ever see that happening.
That's probably not going to work then. Yeah, I forgot about that. My bad. That's me not being a Bills fan, not being wise to it.
You're a Bills watcher. We say
that's right.
Week. You're a Bills
watcher. Right. I don't have these things committed to memory. Like I can tell you about dumb stuff that happened to the Lions 20 years ago, but like I can't tell you about something that happened 5 years ago or 4 years ago. I was probably covering that game when that happened. Who knows?
Let's end with our weekly starting 5 draft. And I don't remember the last time I've been able to say this, Joe, but
you're on a run.
I'm on a winning streak. It's been a while, man. It's been a while.
I got a lot of beef with everybody, but I'm not going to crap talk the fans, but I got a lot of beef with them.
Talking the fans is fun, man.
You do it, and you lose 15 polls in a row. So I'm not about to do it. I'm not doing that. But I was very surprised. Well, tell everybody what the final totals were.
Yeah, well, last week we did best TV couples. If people are, if you missed last week's show, I won 56% of the vote to 44, which, by the way, is to me, that's blowout territory for me, at least.
For
anyway.
You, yes.
The week before, I won by like about 13 votes. It was like 50.7 or whatever it was. But anyway, we did best TV couples, and I took Jim and Pam from The Office, Kevin and Winnie from The Wonder Years, George and Louise from The Jeffersons, Johnny and Moira from Schitt's Creek, and Marshall and Lily from How I Met Your Mother. Joe went with Ricky and Lucy from I Love Lucy, Sam and Diane, Cheers, Mike and Carol Brady, Ross and Rachel, Homer, and Marge. This to me, because I remember us talking about this at the end after we did the draft, and I thought for sure you were going to win. So trust me, this was an upset. This was 100%. If this was the NCAA tournament, this was like a 13.
This is a 14. 3-14 game.
Oh, I was going to go 13-4. I don't think it was quite that big. I mean, I was the 13.
1 seed difference. Come on.
I don't care. It just sounds a lot better.
I went one higher. What are you talking about?
I think with the power of hindsight, I
stick by my 5 every time.
I know you do. But I'm just telling you that I write some columns. I watched a couple TV shows who talked about our draft. And the critics are saying
people write columns about our draft.
Yeah, and the critic.
I need to read these.
You know what the critics say? Ross and Rachel was a big mistake.
See, I love that people were just like they were toxic. Well, yeah. Well, everybody loves a drama bomb. Like that. Like, look at the stuff that runs wild on Twitter. People just love bullshit. Like they just love people that just like want to kill each other, but they love each other, but they kill each other. Like the like I get people hating that. Like listen, I'm never defending friends ever. Never defending friends. Like that's never happening. But like, and the point that I made, which probably nobody's going to listen to this either, but like the point that I made was that like, no matter what you say about the show, like whether you loved it or hated it, that couple was talked about everywhere. Like how many times were in the cover of like Entertainment Weekly talked about Ross and Rachel, blah, 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 blah. it was nauseating. Like that was part of the reason why I didn't want to get into Friends. It was just like, Jesus Christ, like they talk about these characters like they're my friends, and I don't like either of them. I don't like anybody on the show. So, but like you have to respect the show, like the spot in pop culture that they were, which nobody did with any of my picks. Lucy and Ricky, like it's the greatest couple of all time. Greatest couple of all time. And nobody even mentioned Sam and Diane. Like in any of our picks, nobody was just kind of like,
I love Sam and Diane.
What? Nobody knew. Like nobody cares.
People hated on you this week. Couple things.
Fucking jerks.
Sam and Diane was.
I'm a jerk. I know jerks.
Noted jerk. Sam and Diane was a great pick. Ricky and Lucy, I think maybe young people didn't know or didn't care.
No
I'll
respect.
say, by the way, we said best TV couple. I watched, and we'll talk about this another time. I watched Being the Ricardos this week, the movie, and they weren't a great off-screen couple. They were a great on-screen couple, which got nothing to do with our poll. I just wanted to throw it out there. I watched that movie. It was pretty, with Nicole Kidman. It was pretty fascinating. I never really knew that story. What a lot of people were saying, we got the usual, you guys both sucked, and here's my undrafted free agent list, which that's fun. I mean,
the one that got me was people picking other 5 couples and being like, these are better than your 2. And I'm like, I don't think so, pal. I really don't think so.
That's like, the fans having fun. I get it. I agree. You're 100% right. Something else I agree with you with. That didn't sound right. But anyway, a lot of people were saying that Monica and Chandler were a better couple than Ross and Rachel. And I'm like, no. I mean, I hate that show. But no, I don't agree with that whatsoever.
I even said during our draft that I was like, if I wanted to lose on purpose, I would pick them because people would be like, you picked a Friends couple, you didn't even pick the good one. And then people were just, you should have picked the other couple. Name me the good one. Like, shut up. Get out of my face.
I think that was, and again, I think Mike and Carol Brady, it was a good pick. I like the pick. And
everybody knows the goddamn Brady bunch.
I know. It just didn't resonate. I don't know, man. It just didn't resonate.
My ass, please.
Well, let's see what resonates with this week draft, because we're going to be doing a starting 5 draft of Will Ferrell movies. And let me say this before we get into our draft. And you're gonna have the first pick.
Is it me this week?
Yeah, because I had
you did.
I took Pam and Jim. I felt obligated to do that.
Well, yes, you had to.
I'll say this about Will Ferrell. And sometimes people, you don't really look at it this way, but he's right up there, man, with Eddie Murphy and Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and maybe Adam Sandler, like the greatest former Saturday Night Live cast member to go on and become big movie stars. He's right up there with the biggest to ever do it. And he's got a shitload of good movies, certainly enough that between the two of us, we're going to be able to pick 10. I do want to preface one thing. I don't even know if I've talked to you about this, but I want to make this really clear before we draft. When I say Will Ferrell movies, it's not just a movie that he appeared in. Like, he has to either be the star of the movie or one of the co-stars.
Right.
Like, it can't be something that he's had a bit part in. Like, I'll give you an example for everyone listening, because I'm sure people are going to, if they're not listening, they're going to say, why don't we take Wedding Crashers? Wedding Crashers is about Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn. He's got a very small part.
He's a guy that lives on a couch.
Yeah, Chaz, who crashes the funerals. He learned how to crash funerals to pick up chicks. But my point is, Mom, the meatloaf, fuck. I mean, he's got some funny ass
great lines, but he's
but
not the star.
He's not the star. He's just got a very small role in it. So no movies like Wedding Crasher. Ditto for Zoolander. That was about Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, and I don't think he had a big enough role in it. I mean,
it's definitely a supporting role, but that's bigger than his role in Wedding Crashers.
Much bigger. Yeah, I mean, Zoolander, I guess you could probably make an argument, but anyway, let's stay away from those. Let's do movies that he's either the star, one of the co-stars, and he's in it a ton.
I think that makes it more interesting, because if we're picking out like pop-in roles like that are very memorable, then that just makes it way too. That makes it way too stupid. Plus, people will pick it apart too. People are going to yell at us anyways. That is the accepted part of doing the People are just going to yell at us for being dumb regardless.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right, man. So you got first pick here, man. Let's see what you do.
This is a very easy first pick for me. It's Anchorman.
Very easy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's very easy. Yes. Listen, your next 2 picks are probably also picks that could be number 1. At least I would hope so. I can't always say that when it comes to you, because you sometimes go way off the map. But but like Anchorman is like, find me another movie that's quoted as much all over the place with just like dumb stuff. People that don't even realize they're quoting the movie are quoting the movie. Like it's it's such a ridiculous, over the top, insane role, and he's the only person. He's the perfect person that can do that. Nobody else is going to take Ron Burgundy and make that a good role. Nobody. There's nobody else that can play Ron Burgundy and make it as good or better.
I want to be clear.
That's number one.
I want to be clear, okay? Just so you don't you're not confused by what I said.
Right.
Anchorman was number one on my board too. So if I had first
What are
pick,
you giving me grief for? Come on.
I'm giving you grief because I don't think it was an easy pick. It wasn't a slam dunk. It wasn't Tony Soprano taking Best Sopranos characters. I don't agree with that.
Oh.
But it was number one on my board. What a great freaking movie that was, by the way. Jesus. That movie elevated every single person who was in it. All of them. All of them. It was especially Steve Carell, especially, which, by the way, we could point we might be able to do a draft with him pretty soon.
Steve Carell, Paul Rudd, like
everybody
in that movie was like
they were all great.
Even like Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn was had 3 scenes in it.
Yeah.
Him and Will Ferrell just going at each other in every scene is amazing.
It was good. It was good. All right, so I got 2 here.
Mm-hmm.
First one I'm going with, and this is why I said it, because this was like my 1B, is Step Brothers. I love Step Brothers. Brendan Huff, John C. Reilly as Dale Doback. I still that was 1B for me, man. That's why I said this wasn't so easy. I feel like you don't agree with that whatsoever, which is
no. I mean, Step Brothers. Listen, if you left Step Brothers on the board, I'm taking it immediately right after that. But is that character better than Anchorman? I think Step Brothers benefits. He's benefited more by John C. Reilly being equal or greater than him to the task, because they're such idiots together. Anything that they're paired up in, it's freaking hilarious.
It is. That might be, by the way, that might be a top 5 most rewatched movie for me, man. I probably have watched Step Brothers a million times. Yeah, I'm not saying Will Ferrell is the star, but it is a movie he starred in or co-starred, man. So it's eligible.
The goddamn Catalina wine mixer,
Well, it was an F word, man. Goddamn. But all right, so here's my second pick, and this one isn't easy, but I gotta go Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
Legend of Ricky
I kind
Bobby,
of thought you were
man.
going that way.
His character in that is so funny. He's so good at taking a character and just making it so ridiculous. I don't want to say it's believable, because it's certainly not believable, but there's so many memorable lines and moments from that movie, man. It's another one I could just watch over and over. Don't really need to say much more than that, man. Fucking Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Talladega Nights.
Ricky Bobby.
Talladega Nights and Step Brothers. That's going to put you on the clock for 2. I do think now this should start to get a little bit harder.
It's going to get hairy soon. Hopefully right after my next 2 selections, because if I think if I left either of these movies on the board, I would be in serious trouble, because then you could rightfully accuse me of trying to pick the critic favorite movies. And then be like, no, sometimes you have to go with the crowd. Sometimes you have to just be like, no, that's actually the best thing, which my next 2 picks are Old School. He's Frank the Tank. And I think I was worried that you were going to say that Old School would fall under that. He's not the main guy in the movie, but I was like, that's there's 3 stars in that movie. Basically.
Yeah, he's one of he's equally as important as anyone else in the movie. So
I like Old School. The Frank the Tank character is probably a little bit too identifiable to people our age.
Way too.
I can't. I just can't get into it. Then he's streaking. And, he's doing keg stands, and he's just being a maniac. Yeah.
Before you make your next pick, I want to say something. These first 4 for me were on a separate level. After this, I don't know that it's quite clear and cut and dry. I think Old School was easily the top 4, and I probably, if I struggle with one thing, it would have been that or Talladega Nights with my 3rd pick. So it could have went either way. I just happen to like Talladega Nights very, very slightly more. But anyway, to me, the first 4 were very obvious. Now, I just didn't know what order. Now I'm not, at this point, I don't know. I don't know what you're taking now.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised you're saying that because the next pick is Elf.
Okay. I don't like Elf.
Listen, I'm not the biggest Elf fan either, but he drives the movie. He drives the movie. He's freaking insane. Like he's basically playing a 5-year-old in a giant human body through that whole movie. And it's, it's a softer version of Will Ferrell. Like Old School is the more adult version of Will Ferrell. I think, Anchorman's kind of that way too. Elf is more like the, you can have kids watch Elf and just be like, it's funny. He's great. If people love him, he's a big goofball. So yeah, Elf, I gotta sit back and watch Elf again at some point. Probably not now because it's not Christmas. Because I can't be bothered with Christmas stuff right now. But yeah, I gotta watch it again and just get really kind of soak into it more because it was a movie that it was a little bit past me being interested in like something like that, I guess. Like a goofy ass Christmas movie. I'm just kind of like, I just kind of roll my eyes a lot of the times at Christmas movies, especially newer ones. Which I think we discovered that when we did that starting five.
Yeah, but, I got crushed.
Well, listen,
you owned me Christmas. My one is that week. You owe me Christmas month, man. I got fucking 3 weeks. I got my ass.
You now hate Christmas for it. So
I do.
That's fine. But yeah,
it's a good pick.
I respect the performance of him in Elf because it's such an insane role and like he just does it great.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. All right, so I got 2 here. That's good.
I just begrudgingly agreeing. Like,
not a big Elf guy. All right, I got 2. This is another one where he's a co-star in this movie along Marky Mark. I always will call him Marky Mark, by the way. Yes. The other guys. I love this movie. What was it? Detective Alan Gamble. Dude, how could you not pick a movie where Will Ferrell's a pimp and he doesn't even know that he's a pimp? They never even knew he was a pimp. He's got the hot ass wife. He was so dorky and nerdy, but all the chicks were crazy attractive to him, which Marky Mark never understood. He drove the Prius, dude. That movie was awesome. The Rock was in it. He didn't have a big role. Michael Keaton kept having TLC references throughout the movie. Fucking loved that movie. And this isn't about best movies that Will Ferrell are in. Right. It's about him. But I loved him. And I loved him in the other guys. So I'm going to pick that. And then I got to slap this picture up again. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, you won't see the picture. But if you're on YouTube, you will. One of my favorite promo pictures ever. The movie is semi-pro. And it, of course, is a picture of Will Ferrell naked with just a basketball.
It's a very Burt Reynolds-like photo.
Yeah, dude. Again, he was such a fucking ridiculous character. And it was based in the 70s. It was just the scenery, everything was so cool. Jackie Moon was awesome. 2 things that stick out to me about that movie with him specifically was his song, Love Me Sexy. And then there's lyrics that I won't even get into on this podcast because they're a lot more sexually suggestive. But the openings of the song that he had a hit record with back in the day was hilarious. And then he was arguing with the referee and he lost his temper. And the referee called it technical. He goes, "Fuck you, I'll murder your family." It was just the way he said it and how quickly he did. But yeah, man, Woody Harrelson was in it. There are a lot of people in that movie, but for me, far and away, Will Ferrell as Jackie Moon was the star of that. I don't know how that's going to play with fans. You know what? This is that one pick where I really don't give a shit. I love this movie and I love him in it. So I'm going to pick him. You've done 3, so you're going to have 2 more to close this.
My last 2 here. That scene in Semi-Pro always makes me think of the scene in Old School where they're going around picking up the plebes, and then like Master Puppet starts roaring, and then the van comes tearing around. He picks up the guy, and the woman's terrified. Oh, and he's like, "You tell anybody about this, I'll kill you." And she's like, "Oh," and he's like, "No, I'm just kidding. We'll have him back later tonight." Like that kills me every time. That, by the way, was a surreal theater experience seeing Old School in the theater, because that was one of a handful of times I've seen a movie where the entire theater is just pissing themselves laughing.
Yeah.
So, okay. My last 2. Well, I'm going to go with Blades of Glory. Whether that's spurred on by the Winter Olympics coming to an end or not, Blades of Glory is an insane role.
It is.
For him. Like when you tell people like Will Ferrell's in a figure skating movie, it's like, what do you mean?
As Michael Michaels.
But it's like, it's the perfect that's like the perfect thing to put him in. Just something completely dumb and over the top and silly. And yeah, he's like that's a great role for him.
It is. That's a good pick.
The
That's going to score well too, I predict.
I think so. I mean, Semi-Pro is going to score well for you too. Like there's so much insane shit in that movie too. Like every movie has to have insane stuff. My last pick though is, I don't know if this falls in with more of a traditional comedy role, but Stranger Than Fiction, where he's got what, Emma Thompson narrating his life as he walks around, and it like makes him crazy. Like that whole premise is just wonderful. Plus, I mean, if I was walking around all day and had Emma Thompson's voice in my head, I would just be like, oh, this rules. This is so good. But yeah, that's like that role of him just being just getting tortured essentially is great.
It's a good pick. I don't know how that'll resonate.
I mean, it's probably not going to resonate, but like, listen, like we said,
sometimes you got to make
bottom five is going to be weird.
Sometimes you got to make a pick that you believe in, for better or for worse, man.
Yeah.
All right. So I got the last pick of this draft, and I
don't know where you're going with this, honestly.
I don't know where I'm going with it either, because I was kind of hoping and I was going to jump on Blades of Glory, and I would have been so happy to do that with the last pick. So
I honestly thought you were going to pick Semi-Pro and Blades of Glory back to back and just completely F me with that. I was like, cool.
I'm stuck on one of two at this point, and I'm going to pick a movie that I thought he was really funny in. And it's supposed to be like a kid's movie, but it turns into Will Ferrell's kind of becomes a psycho coach movie. Kicking and Screaming.
Oh, yeah.
Such a great movie. He plays Phil Weston. Mike Dicka's in that movie. And yeah, he's just this everyday soccer dad, who coaches. He don't know a lot about soccer, but he's a great guy. And then he kind of gets competitive and he starts to go nuts, and he starts becoming a coffee freak and drinking those cappuccino and all other crazy coffee shit that he had. And then of course, again, kids movie, he redeems himself and yada, 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 yada. But he was absolutely fucking hilarious in this movie, dude. Because, in fact, here's a fun fact: an email address to this very day that I still use is the juice box guy. And what I say by that is he started calling Mike Dick, if you remember in that movie, a scene, he told him to go get him juice boxes, and he starts calling Mike Dick a juice box guy. So I have an email that to this day, it's the juice box guy at yahoo.com if anyone ever wants to email me. But that might I was gonna say more, but then I'm like, hold on, I might get into password hacking territory.
Don't dox yourself. don't do that.
But no, I love that movie, The Juice Box Guy. That was funny. All right, let me recap these here. Actually, there's a couple that I had written down. They were like in case of emergency picks, which by the way, my list went the only one that wasn't on my top 7 or 8 that got picked here. Well, I didn't have Stranger Than Fiction on my top 7 or 8, is Elf, just because I personally don't like Elf that much, but I know everybody loves Elf. I get it. And he was really funny in it. So I don't know. I couldn't do it. But anyway,
I hope you're not like summoning all the responses to the tweets we're going to get for these.
The couple that I had written down that neither of us took was The Campaign. I don't know if you've seen that with Zach.
No.
What the hell is that?
Zac Efron?
No. Not the pretty Zach, the bearded, ugly ass one.
Oh, Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah. It was okay. I thought he was but he was pretty fun. He was a corrupt, shitty politician in that movie. I thought he was good in that. So I wrote that down.
I think of that way more as of a Galifianakis movie, really, because he's just such an insane person.
Yeah. I agree. A Night at the Roxbury is one that I wrote down, but I wasn't a big fan of that either. And Get Hard, a little more recent movie he did with Kevin Hart. I'll tell you this, Joe, before we go over these picks,
I'm just glad Anchorman 2 wasn't on your list, because that ranks up there with Caddyshack 2 as awful sequels.
Yeah, it's watchable, and if you're giving it the best, if you're giving it the best compliment you could possibly give it, you would say it's not watchable. It's tolerable. It wasn't fun. It wasn't good. But here's the thing: for people who are like, "Well, Will Ferrell," let me tell you this: from 2003 to 2008, Old School, Elf, Anchorman, Kicking and Screaming, Talladega Nights, Blades of Glory, Semi-Pro, Step Brothers. He did all those movies in a 5-year span from 2003 to 2008.
Man.
That's a run right there,
That's
man.
that's a sick run.
That's a run. All right, let me recap these picks for everybody out there. All right, so Joe, who had first pick, he took Anchorman, Old School, Elf, Blades of Glory, and Stranger Than Fiction. I took Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, The Other Guys, Semi-Pro, Kicking and Screaming. Final thoughts.
I don't know what to predict. I
I
thought
don't either.
like last week has broken me from trying to predict anything. I don't know how anything works anymore. So thank you, fans of the show, for breaking my brain. It's really cool.
By the way, can you believe how fast this month and this year's already gone? This is the last Friday show of February. Next Friday, we're already into March, man. It's Shamrock Run weekend in Buffalo next weekend, March 5th.
I will not be participating in that because I don't run.
Oh, I ain't running either. I ain't running. Who said I ain't running?
Now, if anybody wants to get the post-show beer after the run, yeah, I'm there for that. But running, no, it's absolutely not.